Hello and welcome to Orderly Ape. Today we're going to learn how to use Orderly Ape. If you're not familiar with what Orderly Ape is, it is a distributed, scalable load testing platform. It is open source and it runs K6 tests at scale. Check it out at orderlyape.com. This video assumes you have already installed your own Orderly Ape cluster and you're just learning how to get started actually running tests. If you haven't finished that, go find the video or documentation about how to get started. Everything is on GitHub. So you can go to github/reviewsignal/orderly-ape. Everything is here, how to install it, how to add testing locations, and how to run tests. So let's get started. If you've just installed your Orderly Ape instance, it'll look something like this. You log in. Your credentials, they come from the values.yaml file that you set up Orderly Ape with. So if you can't remember, it's admin and then whatever password you set. So you've logged in, you're in your admin. I'll just quickly go through this stuff. Groups, you probably don't need to use. We just have a group for workers. You'll learn about that if you add additional test locations. Users do matter. So if I click this, you have an admin user. You can add more users with different permissions to view or be super users. You'll notice a bunch of other locations here. So we use the users and the groups to add additional test locations. So for test locations on this testing instance, we have added a few: Singapore, New York, London, Sydney. And then we have the cluster that we've installed on as well. So we have 5 different locations. Test outputs you probably don't need to use. This is for advanced users only. We're set up automatically to output all of our data to InfluxDB. And then test runs. This is where you're going to spend most of your time. You can see I've run a few dummy tests here. So you can see this is the test name. Here was the target. It's got a link to the results. It's got a link to the script. So you have to run it from a GitHub script. The status, when everything happened, etc. So if you want to run your first test, you would click New Test Run. So target, that's the URL you want to test. We're going to just test this site here with very low users because it's not designed for scaling anything. It's just a dummy site so people can see it. Okay, so test output is default. We want to send it to InfluxDB. Don't change anything. By default, it is using the repo for the WP hosting benchmarks that I do, but you could put in any repo you want here. So write your own scripts, put it in. Right now, this is the repo that it defaults to, which has 3 different scripts. These are what I do the benchmarks with. So LoadStorm.js simulates kind of a regular WordPress site with users visiting, logging in, browsing around. The static cache test just hammers the home page and makes sure you have a static cache. And WooCommerce.js, which tests a WooCommerce site and has a few profiles. You can go to the review signal GitHub, find the K6 WordPress benchmarks, and dig in if you're really curious. It has all of the information about all the scripts and how to use them. So we're just going to do a regular WordPress site. That's this. So that's going to be the loadstorm.js. So if we look here, we're gonna use that. The get reference here, you can do any branch tag or commit hash you want. We're just going to use main because everything's been merged in. There used to be an Orderly Ape branch, but now it's merged into main, so we don't need to do anything. It's just main. The file name. The test file is loadstorm.js, so we need to just change that to loadstorm.js so it knows it's from the repository root. Make sure you know that. So how many CPUs for each worker? We're going to use 1 is fine. 2 gigs of memory, it's default. Run each worker on a separate node. So if you check this box, when these tests start to run and it gets prepared to run them, Kubernetes is going to spin up an additional node to run the test exclusively on that node so that it doesn't interfere with anything else. So if you just have your one cluster that you set up, you haven't added any additional testing nodes, you're going to have 3 to start with. You're going to have your web app, which we're looking at here. You're going to have your InfluxDB node, and you're going to have your Grafana node. So when we're running these tests, it'd be great if the test itself being executed didn't interfere with any of that. So if you check that, it's going to spin up a 4th node and run it on that. The same with additional testing nodes. It's going to have 1 node sitting there managing things, communicating with the main cluster that the web app runs on, and it'll spin up additional nodes to run tests from. If you want to save money, resources, the nodes are big enough, you can uncheck that and it won't spin up a new node to run each of these tests. That's up to you. The node selector, I never use this. This is an advanced thing, I believe. Job deadline. So this, you need to tell it how long you expect this script to run, and you need to, it's not just the test. So if your test says it's going to run for 1 hour, you need to put a little bit more than that, because otherwise it's going to take time to get set up and all that, and by the time the hour is done, your test may have only been running for 50 minutes or 55 minutes, and it'll potentially error out. So put an appropriate deadline, otherwise you might get some errors. Okay, so test run locations. Since we added additional test locations, you can choose how many you want to use here. Yeah, and select them. But if you don't want to use them, you could, let's say I don't want to use the local node, just the other ones. I'll do that. Test run environmental variables. So the way that Orderly Ape works is you pass in all the environmental variables from here into the K6 instances. So you need to write your scripts so that they can all get the appropriate information to dynamically load. If you look at the scripts we have here, so we're going to use this loadstorm.js, you'll notice that there are a bunch of environmental variables that are here. So we actually get them from this setup environment function and override them with these default values in this script. So if you look at setup environment, it is in lib. Oh, could have just clicked there, I guess. It's in lib env.js. So what's happening is, so if it's looking for this site URL, env.target. So env.target is actually the only one we have hard-coded. You have to have a target for your load test. That's the URL to pass in. So that gets that. It can also be a default value. So if you hard-coded it in to the loadstorm.js as a default value, it'll use that if it does not have a target. Although I'm not sure if Orderly Ape will even run without a target. So haven't tested that. That's a good question. But if there is no target, it's going to just error out, not work. Now for the other ones, we have things like password, usernames, etc., etc., etc. That is how we pass information from Orderly Ape to the scripts that are executing on the nodes. So for this LoadStorm script, if I look here, this is required. We need the target variable. Okay, so we've already set that up. So password is WP password is the environmental variable. Well, I'm going to put username first because that feels more proper. So username is the username base. We can add as many test variables as we want. So WP password. I can't remember what it actually is, so we're just going to put that, and it'll probably yell at us when it fails. But that doesn't really matter because I'm just trying to show you a demo. So we need the password, we need WP username, we need a range start. So this is designed so that if you have many users, you'd have username, so the full username would be like username 10, and then you'd have username 11, etc. And so this is a way to create the base and then say this is the range you start with. This is the end of the range, and it'll randomly sample from there. So I'm just going to put 10. So it's just going to always use username 10. You can make that 1,000, 10,000 if you have that many users set up on the site. This is just going to always use the same one because the range is 1. Those are the required variables. Custom header if you want to identify traffic so that you can monitor things at like the network level, filtering, whatever. You can create custom headers, create a custom header value. If your WordPress login is somewhere else, it's not at WP login, you can set that up here. The domain filter. So by default, WordPress often loads a bunch of domains and assets from stuff that isn't your site. If you're trying to test your site's performance, you maybe don't want to pull stuff. So by default, we're ignoring Google APIs, Gravatar, and stats.wp. They just won't be called. You can add as many or remove whatever you want using this domain filter. Min pause, that's 5 and 10 seconds. Min and max. So between pages, it's going to wait between those numbers. Since we have a really small, weak site that is not designed for load testing, we're gonna put those in and slow them down a little bit. And then V users. How many V users do you want to scale to? So the default is 1. But we have 4 locations, so that seems a bit silly to have 1 user split among 4 locations. Let's do 50 with this sort of spread out. Hopefully it doesn't destroy the server, but it's not going to go well anyways because I think I put the wrong username and password. So, yay. Test run labels, you can label your tests. We'll probably do more with that later to help you sort and search, but this is, let's see, demo 1 value, yay. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. So let's save that. Okay, it's here, it's a draft, it's not ready. So if I click in here, okay, let's just review everything. That's going to be the target. The output's all good. It's going to use that. It's going to use main loadstorm.js, 1 hour. The script is by default 30 minutes. It's hard coded in there. It's got 4 locations. It's got all of our stuff. So if it's good to go, I can hit save and run test. So now you'll see this has changed. Status is now pending. So what's happening? You can click onto your test. Once you have hit run, you can't edit it. You can't really do much. The only thing you can do once you've run it is if you click here, you can cancel it with this action. But we don't want to actually do that. We want it to run. So if you noticed, actually it changed. Status is queued. So it went from pending to queued. So you can actually see in all the locations. So we are waiting for Sydney, New York, Singapore, and London. It's queued for execution. If you go here, you can actually see this is the state diagram. Pending is where we start. Queued is it's accepted the job, and we're kind of waiting for the pods to get set up. Then it'll initialize and run. So if we go back here, I can refresh. Ooh, okay. So Sydney is ready and London is ready, but Singapore and New York are still not. So basically Sydney, London would be communicating to our web app, you know, we're ready, waiting. Once every location is ready, then it will be told to execute at the same time, because we need all of the tests to be running concurrently, timed properly, so that, you know, all of our scaling, all the profiles that we try and define with how much to scale, when, the duration of the test, that all needs to be accurate. Okay, so that's just waiting. So while that runs, you don't need to, you can look at it more detailed here on the actual test itself, but you'll probably be waiting here where it says queued, because that's the least progressed state of all of the different instances. What's neat is you'll be able to click summary, and this will open up Grafana. I'm already logged in. You may need to log in the first time. This loads your Grafana instance. The username is admin, and the password again is set in your values.yaml file. So log in with those credentials, and then you'll end up on a dashboard like this, and you'll see nothing's happening yet because the test hasn't started running. Oh, now it's initializing, so we are about to start. So yeah, you can see all of them are initializing, so it shows initializing as our status. I'm getting excited, we're almost there, and we're running. Excellent. So yeah, there was nothing here, so that's completed. Cool. So now it's running. Now data, so when you load it, if it's an active test, this auto refresh will be on. It's on auto refresh every 10 seconds. I'm going to make it 5 seconds just so we see more stuff, but it's really slow. So, welcome to the dashboard. This is what you're probably most interested in. You can see here how many requests, how many failures, the RPS, P95, how much data is going in and out. You can start to see our chart here is starting to form. I'm gonna change the time here so that we're, yeah, now I can see it a little bit better. No errors yet. That's probably because it hasn't fully logged in and failed to log in. Since it started at 3350, and we're probably getting near some failures, potentially. Okay, this says no data. I'm going to reload this. So if I come here and click the summary again, I'm hoping it'll, yeah, okay. It'll, once it's actually loaded, it has a sense of this is how long the test should be running. It's giving us a proper window. And we actually get any custom metrics that you define in your script should automatically get their own little chart here as well. So in the loadstorm.js, we have K6 asset response time, page response time, and then a bunch of different checks for different stuff. Login failures. Oh, yep. So that's a login failure counter 1. So it's failing like expected because pretty sure I put the wrong username and password in there. Yeah. So all your custom metrics show up here. The requests, this shows you what assets are being requested. So you can see method, post, that's the WP login. We go there, posting it is when it actually logs in. You can see the P95 on all of this stuff, the mean, which is average. So yeah, we can see all of the different assets it's loading during this test and the performance of it. We can also see the charts here, which gives you a more visual representation of everything that's happening. And then there's some cool stuff that I'm really happy about. So you can click up here and you can filter by location. So let's see how Sydney's doing. So Sydney, this is everything here is just Sydney's data. So we have the min, mean, max. So min 240, mean 369, max 501. Okay. And then all the requests are filtered for that. All of this custom metrics, they're filtered only showing Sydney data, which is something I'm really happy about when you're wanting to dig in to see if there's issues. So let's look at New York. So we remembered 240, 501 is the min max. So if we load New York's data, it's 56, 112. So the site we're testing is probably closer to New York than Sydney. And if we load London's data, 98, 292. A little bit further away, but still closer than Sydney. And then Singapore, 312, 631. So Singapore's got the worst connection to our test site probably. But I'm really happy about this, that I can break it down by all the locations. And then if you do all, groups all the data together. You have other stuff here. So if I just want to look at login, the login group, I can do that and just have data for that. The load homepage group. So you'll see there's no login stuff here. It just loading the homepage and the data for that. We're using the K6 groups. So you can just filter by the groups. And then scenario. We're not using scenarios in the loadstorm.js. However, if I look at an older test here, I have a WooCommerce test. And in the WooCommerce test, we have browser, buyer, customer, homepage scenarios. There's 4 different scenarios simulating 4 different kinds of potential customers that might be coming to your shop. So if I want to filter just the browser, everything gets filtered, and you'll see there's a little bit different custom metrics here. So since we're on the browser is just looking at products. It doesn't buy them, it doesn't do anything. So they don't log in, so there's no data, there's no cart response time, because that's just not in this scenario. But if I go to the customer scenario, there is a login response time because a customer logs in. And if I go to a buyer, the buyer goes to the cart, and so suddenly we have data here. And yeah, everything is getting filtered for that, and you can break it down, combine these. So if I want to see the Sydney buyers, I can break down just that data. And yeah, that is the dashboard. And this is in Grafana. So if you want to edit this dashboard, you can literally click on any of the components, edit them yourself, build your own dashboard, add your own metrics, views, whatever you want. That's kind of the beauty of this Orderly Ape project. We're trying to make it so that you can run load tests at scale on your own infrastructure, that you control everything, and you can modify it. So we're trying to build a dashboard that covers what I think is the main use cases and the main things people would want to see, but it can easily be extended to add whatever stuff you want to add on top. And we hope you do. We hope you find Orderly Ape useful, valuable, and helps you scale your websites, your clients' websites, testing everything you can. And if you have any questions, comments, feedback, you can go to orderlyape.com or go to the GitHub repo. We have a Discord link here. You can come to the Discord and talk. It's a brand new project, so it says only 5 people online right now. So hopefully by the time you join, that number is much, much higher. If you run into any issues, go to GitHub, create an issue, and let us figure it out. If you want to contribute, we are still looking for sponsors. You can see we have a few sponsors already. We definitely need more to help fund the development of this. You can check out the issues. If you look at the issues, you can see some of the enhancements that we want to make. There's bugs, of course. Some of it's quite aspirational, not in this version, but we'd love to add more and make it even more powerful. And maybe you have ideas. So if you want to sponsor, come do that, or contribute code. If you extend Orderly Ape and do something really valuable for what you think everybody might appreciate, please open a pull, fork the code, open a pull request. Love to see people use and make Orderly Ape a huge success. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have found this helpful, and I hope you use Orderly Ape. Thank you.